Hi everyone and welcome to another edition of AFTV Live. The nominees for the Premier League Manager of the Season have been announced today and we're here to discuss it. Let me just briefly go through the nominees. They are Mikel Arteta, Arsenal, Roberto De Zerbi, Brighton, Unai Emery, Aston Villa, Pep Guardiola, Man City, Eddie Howe, Newcastle and Marco Silva, Fulham. Now joining me to talk about it on the couch today, we have Robbie to my far left. Also in the house, we've got Sheroy.
We got Sheroy.
Pleasure to be back.
Yeah. How are you guys today? Feeling good?
Can't
Good,
complain.
man. Warm today.
Yeah, I mean it's really warm up here.
Yeah, nice weather, man. For at last.
No further ado though, let's get straight into it. Let's start with Sheroy. So you heard the nominees,
Yep.
and I'm sure you've had time to give it some thought. What do you reckon? Who would you give it to?
There are so many ways that you can approach this, right? Because I know a lot of people would come out and say, okay, one of the best metrics for who the manager of the season ought to be is the person who's won the most Manager of the Month awards, for example. And that would be Mikel Arteta, if I'm not mistaken. He's picked up a hell of a lot. But for me, instantly when I saw that, I thought, who is the manager that is about to do the three-peat? Who is the manager that's about to do 5 out of the last 6 Premier Leagues? Who is the manager that has managed to make his team evolve through losing what we would call crucial players, like Aguero, even Cancelo leaving recently, and involving people like Ake, right? So immediately I said Pep Guardiola, and you saw me. Within 5 seconds, Pep Guardiola was the first name. I find it so hard to see past him for all of those reasons.
And I know, Robbie, because we did speak about it off here, you've got an alternative view.
I have an alternative view, and that's Super Mick Arteta.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what we need.
Well, he did up until game week 32 or whatever it was, yeah.
Now I know, listen, we're all disappointed. We're all hurting still for, last week, that defeat against Brighton. And, in the end, we've kind of crumbled away a bit at the end. But, and it's a big but, like you said, you got the most Managers of the Month awards this season. He's been brilliant.
Yeah.
I was looking back at it, right? At the start of this season, I looked at Gary Neville's predictions, Jamie Carragher's predictions, Roy Keane's predictions, right, that they did on Sky, yeah? Not one of them had Arsenal finishing in the top 4.
Yep.
All of them had City winning it or Liverpool winning it, right? And then they had in their top 4s, they'd have United in there, they'd have Chelsea in there, they'd have Tottenham in there. Arsenal was not in any of their top 4s. They're the leading, 3 of the leading pundits for, this country when it comes to football, right? But not only were we in the top 4, right? Arsenal for most of the season led the league. And let's be real, we should really have won it. And I know we've fallen away a bit at the end, but still, with the youngest team in the Premier League, I think Mikel Arteta's achievements this year, when nobody of those big pundits said that we'd even get in the top 4, I think he's overachieved. At the start of the season, if I went to you and I went to you and I said, who's going to win the league, you'd have said Pep Guardiola.
Completely agree.
Right?
But this isn't the Overachiever of the Year award, right? This is the manager of the
Yeah, but then you've got to take these things into account when you're talking about the Manager of the Year award, because that's why if you just said it, if you just base it off of who wins it, then, obviously it's Pep, right? Because he's won the league. But that's why you've got people like De Zerbi in it, because he's done a great job.
Yeah.
And he's overachieved with Brighton. When, Brighton lost Graham Potter, a lot of people are like, what's going to happen with Brighton? He's actually made them better. So he's got a great shout for it. I think I had him right up there. Eddie Howe has done wonders with Newcastle. We don't know yet if he's going to get into the top 4. Should do, but we don't know yet. If he gets into the top 4, right, then maybe there's a great shout for him getting it. But right now, the one thing we definitely know is that Arsenal are going to finish minimum of second. They are going to finish second because City have won the league. So that's why, for me, I think this guy has overachieved so much because, that's 4 places basically he's jumped up. I think Mikel Arteta deserves to get the award for this season.
I don't want to argue with you too much.
And remember, this is for the Premier League.
I agree.
Right? I know you're going to talk to me about trebles. I'm not going to mention. I'm not going to mention.
Right? I'll stick to the parameters. But for me, and I'm one of Mikel Arteta's biggest fans. Anyone who's listened to me on here before knows that I'm always singing his praises. I'm looking at the times this season Mikel Arteta has come up against the manager that I think ought to be manager of the season.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, it's all right. I'm looking at the times that Arteta has come up against Guardiola, and I don't think anything was more telling than when we just went to the Etihad. It wasn't just because Pep had far better players. That was a big thing, but Pep tactically, I think, got that so right and neutralised everything that Arteta tried to do. That's why I find it very difficult to even suggest that Pep Guardiola ought not to win this, and he's done that to the vast majority of managers.
And that's true, but I think as well, let's also, when we, as I said, don't be just blindsided by the last result, which is the loss at Brighton.
Yeah.
Look at some of the big wins he's had this year as well. He went away to Tottenham, place that we hadn't, done anything at for years and years, done the double over Tottenham. Even when you even go right back, people, to the first game of the season, that game was put on a Friday night for a reason. Because for a lot of people, that was the game. Arsenal going to go and crumble away again at Palace. Went to Palace, put in a really, really impressive display on the first game of the season. And I just think, with the young players that he's had, we've seen the emergence of some really top players. Martin Odegaard, who some people were saying, was the Arsenal, should they really have spent that money on it? Martin Odegaard, look how good he's been. Granit Xhaka, who, I look at Granit Xhaka and Joe Linton in this league as two players that, a couple of seasons ago, whether it be Arsenal or Newcastle fans, would drive them to the airport and say, see you later. Eddie Howe's did great with Joe Linton, got so much out of him, but also look how good Granit Xhaka has been this season. That's been down to Arteta.
Let me pick you up on something there. I was interested to note you mentioned people should not be blindsided by the result against City.
No, Brighton. I'm on about the last result, Brighton. Because had you have done this show probably the week before, people would still be hurting because we haven't won the league. But that impressive victory, against Newcastle will be fresh in people's heads. While at the moment, fresh in people's heads is the Brighton result.
So what would you say to those people that would say, and there are more than a few that say that Arsenal's season kind of tailed off following the Liverpool result, because he had the Liverpool, the West Ham, Southampton. Okay, you are right, picked up very well against Newcastle, but then had that poor result against Brighton. Because there is an element of the fan base, not just the Arsenal fan base, that's saying that Arsenal season's kind of tailed off. What would you say?
I agree with that, and I think a lot of that's to do with Pep Guardiola at his disposal has an unbelievable squad that he's had in place for a long time, right? So we were even talking about it earlier, Sheroy, how the ability of Man City to rotate their squad, not even talking about resting them. He can just rotate and say, you know what, for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to play Mahrez. For the next 3 weeks, I'm going to start with Foden. You know what I mean? He also, at the start of the season, was able to bring in the best striker there is around right now in Erling Haaland to add to that squad. He spent £100 million last year on Grealish. Mikel Arteta does not have that at his disposal, right? He doesn't have that at his disposal. And we've seen that, certain injuries, key injuries, have really affected the team. When Saliba went out, we haven't got what City have got, where, Ake can be out, but Laporte can step in. Or, Walker can come back into the fold and things like that. We haven't got that. So
hold it there. I'm going to bring in Sheroy on the whole resources thing.
So
what's your riposte?
The resources thing is a reason for me as to why Manchester City are the more successful team, but that doesn't necessarily go to why Pep Guardiola ought not to be the best manager this season. And I'll tell you why. If you're looking at a team that's won 5 of the last 6, there has to be something said of the manager to be able to keep those guys motivated to want to keep winning. It's very easy for individuals to sort of rest on their laurels.
Of course.
When you compare that to a team that hasn't won a title since I was a teenager, I'm 33 years old now, by the way, that team probably is already hungry and does already really want to win it. So the motivational factor actually should be slightly lessened. There's something to be said for the fact that Guardiola can keep these guys going to the extent that they've won 11 of their last 11 at the business end. And realistically, by the end of this season, they will probably have won the last 14 games of the season.
Incredible.
To absolutely storm
Incredible,
it.
but
I completely agree with everything you're saying about resources, but I can't help but think that if you gave Pep Guardiola and Mikel Arteta the same resources, given the stage that they are at in their development as managers, This might be unpopular with the people that are listening. I still personally think Pep Guardiola will come out on top.
Listen, Pep Guardiola is the best manager in European football right now, easily, for my right. There is no doubting when you're talking about managers, you can't compare Mikel Arteta to Pep Guardiola. Yeah. That's why he was number 2. That's why he's learning off of him. He's the Don. He's the man, right? But what I'm saying, for what Mikel Arteta's done, he does not have the resources. When Saliba went out, he can't bring in a Laporte.
I agree.
He's bringing in Rob Holding.
Completely agree.
Right? You know what I mean? That's the difference, right? He can't, when Jesus was out, he can't bring in a World Cup winner.
Correct.
To replace him, you know what I mean? He's got to bring in Eddie Nketiah, who's not even an England international. And he still kept this team going right literally till the end, right? We've come up against a juggernaut in Manchester City and they put together an unbelievable run and that, but they are the champions. They've been there, they've done it year in, year out. They've got a squad that is built to do that at the start of the season. They've got a Champions League squad. We put a Europa League squad together, right? A squad that can compete in the Europa League, which is basically what that means is earlier on in the competition you play loads of kids, and then later on when it gets more serious you can, and they made a couple of signings in January. But resources-wise, Arteta's not had that at his disposal, but with what he's got, he's done brilliantly this season. As I said, nobody had him anywhere near the top 4. Yeah. Look at go back and look at the pundits at the start of the season. Probably a lot of people even watching this, try and remember honestly what you thought at the start of the season, not your heart, what your head told you. Loads of people saying, loads of people, I remember even speaking to you, you were like, oh, Conte, Tottenham have got Conte. You know what I mean? He's seen off on people like that. Yeah. So,
You both make some very salient arguments, I must admit. You made the argument about the resources. You came back with the way the resources are managed. Looking at the comments, again, a lot of the debate here is very split. There's quite a few people going for Arteta, quite a few going for Pep. Let me just ask you, take away Arteta and Pep, of the others, so if you had to give an honourable mention to the other guys on that list, who would you go for if it wasn't an Arteta or it weren't a Pep?
I think my opinion, if Eddie Howe gets into the top 4, I think Eddie Howe gets it. Then if I took those other 2 out, because what he's done with Newcastle's been brilliant. Again, he's had a good squad. I'd also be rivaling him very heavily with De Zerbi at Brighton. You know what I mean? Their football that they play is to be admired. You know what I mean? He lost Trossard to us. Graham Potter had been there and built that team for quite a while. There was even talk when De Zerbi come in, it's Potter's team. He's made the team better. So I think it'd be between De Zerbi and Eddie Howe, but I can't decide yet because I don't know yet where they're going to both finish. I think if Eddie Howe gets in the top 4, it's Eddie Howe for me.
If Eddie Howe gets in the top 4, but De Zerbi manages to take Brighton to the Europa League, what do you think is the biggest achievement out of the 2? Given what you just said about Eddie Howe's resources and the fact that Brighton lost their manager, a manager who brought stability to that club, had their players raided, managed to keep hold of Caicedo, crucially in the January window, what's the bigger achievement there?
I'd still slightly go for Eddie Howe, and the reason being is he would have knocked Liverpool out of that. Yeah. To get into that top 4 and to do that with them. Remember, a lot of people forget Liverpool spent a lot of money at the start of the season. Yeah. You know what I mean? They bought in players. You know what I mean? I know they lost Mane
with a world level manager,
but with a world level manager and with a team that's been competing to go against Man City for the last 5 seasons. I think if he gets in ahead of him, it's got to be Eddie Howe for me. As great as De Zerbi's done.
Sheroy, no Arteta, no Pep. So you have 4 others you can choose. Who would you go for?
See, the reason I actually have a problem with taking Arteta out of it, if we're using the metric of simply overachieving, as opposed to success, winning the thing, I then think if you're talking about Arteta getting us into the top 4, if Eddie Howe gets Newcastle into the top 4, there is an argument to be made that he ought to get it over Arteta.
No, but I didn't just say him about. For me, it's not just that he got us into the top 4. It's about the fact that he challenged for the league. The only team to challenge for the league this season was Arsenal and Man City. They're the only two.
Correct, but it's hard to conduct the balancing exercise between that and also, as you said,
but you've got to take that into
Newcastle knocking Liverpool out is a huge thing, right?
No, but you've got to take that. You
definitely have to take it into account.
Knocking them out of the top 4 race. What I'm on about, I've always wanted to see my team challenging for the league.
100.
And that's
100.
what I've seen this season.
100.
Liverpool fans haven't seen this fan challenge. I know they have over the years. Not this year. Man United haven't challenged for the league. Newcastle haven't challenged for the league, right? Chelsea haven't challenged for the leagues. It's only been Arsenal and Man City.
Yeah. Look, I'd go Eddie Howe. In answer to your question,
go Eddie Howe.
I'd go Eddie Howe. And the more I think about it, by the way, I've been doing this because it's a debate, but if we land on Arteta, I have no problem with it. I can look back at some of those months, right? Remember the month when we had Liverpool at home and then we had Tottenham at home. We had some tough games then.
January.
When was the last time we'd beaten Liverpool at home? We usually hold goals when Liverpool come to us. He's managed to make us do that. Even New Year's Eve, when you've seen Manchester City lose, or was it drop points to Everton? I can't remember. It might have been lose to Brentford, or it might have been drop points to Everton that day. I can't remember. We go to Brighton and we put 4 past them, right? And then we come back without Jesus. We pick up where we left off, and we carry on and we carry on. He's done an incredible job. He's won the most Manager of the Month awards, and it's testament to him that he's actually got a lot of his players up for the other accolades. Brilliant season, do not get me wrong.
So there you have it. Interesting debate. So you've gone for Arteta, you've gone for Pep, but you do both agree on the Eddie Howe, which I think is very interesting. I wouldn't have a problem with that either. Just very quickly, some of the thought that came into my mind while we were discussing this. Are there any managers out there that are not in that list of 6 that you would have said deserves an honourable mention? And by that, I'll give you an example. So I think Gary O'Neill.
Frank Lampard, incredible job. Long live Frank.
He's definitely done an incredible job, but not the job that the Chelsea fans were hoping.
Yeah.
But someone like Gary O'Neill, I mean, kept Bournemouth up.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Came in at a time when the club was in turmoil. And a lot of people, and I'm going to say this for myself included, I was thinking, wow, Gary O'Neill, are you sure? And look what he's done.
Unai Emery.
He's been nominated.
Oh, he's nominated.
Yeah, he's nominated.
I think Gary O'Neill's a great shout because Gary, again, going back to that at the start of the season, everybody had Bournemouth going down. In January, everybody had Bournemouth going down. And do you know the other thing that really impressed me about Gary O'Neill, right, is that he had them playing football.
He did.
Playing football, and they've got no big stars in that team. Billings, Solanke, these guys, no big stars. And as a team, I remember when they came to the Emirates, I thought they were excellent. Yeah. Very unfortunate not to get all 3 points.
Beat Liverpool. After Liverpool banged 7 against United.
Yeah.
Bournemouth then take them out.
Yeah. I think
that's worth a mention. Dare I say it? Some people, not necessarily myself, Ten Hag took over at Man United again in a lot of turmoil.
No.
The Ronaldo situation, he seemed to get that right. They won a trophy.
Went well. It's Premier League Manager of the season. So in the same way that we can't take into account City's pending treble, we can't take those trophies into account either. But what Robbie was saying about the resources at teams' disposal and the foreseeability of them getting into the top 4, I think given that Ten Hag, let's not forget, he did have Cristiano Ronaldo. He was inheriting a squad with Jadon Sancho in his team. He got the likes of Casemiro, Lisandro Martinez. And it's obscene the way, Anthony was how much? 90 odd mil?
88 million.
So honestly, for him to get into a Champions League position, in my opinion, they ought to have been doing that.
Yeah.
They ought to have been doing that.
That's in my, and then remember, along the way, he's had some results in the Premier. I know this is a Premier League thing. To lose to your deadliest rivals, Liverpool, 7-0.
6 against City.
6 against City, 7. Boy.
Interesting. So you're both going with Gary O'Neill, and I'm going to give myself
Gary
some
O'Neill.
credit for that. Anyone else? Just very quickly, we're going to move on to the young player of the season in a minute. But anyone else?
I think a lot of it is to do with duration, right? That's why I was surprised that Emery was in there. But I know this is going to sound silly, but there was a lot of talk about Crystal Palace being in relegation trouble. Roy Hodgson came back and got them playing football as well.
That's true.
They have a wicked run of results now.
It's true. Roy Hodgson. They were looking down and out, weren't they?
Looked like a complete regen.
Yeah.
So there you have it, people. Arteta and Pep, or Pep and Arteta. Eddie Howe, and honourable mentions for Gary O'Neill and for Roy. Very interesting stuff.
And Frank Lampard.
Frank Lampard. Super.
Frank Lampard, but for
let's not forget, he flopped at 2 clubs, so not even just one, Everton and Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay then, so let's talk very briefly then about the nominees for the Premier League Young Player of the Season. and I'll go through those very quickly. Erling Haaland, forget that's an obvious
That's
one.
right, it's
for City.
finished.
Exactly.
Our own Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka, Arsenal, of course. Martin Odegaard as well, Arsenal. Sven Botman, Alexander Isak, both of them Newcastle. Alexis McAllister and Moses Caicedo of Brighton. Any of those names that stand out? I guess one's going to stand out immediately.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that strikes me is when we were talking about the managers of the month, we were talking about Mikel Arteta, Pep Guardiola, Eddie Howe, De Zerbi. It is players under their stewardship that are pretty much nominated there, right? Because of the fact that their managers have done such an incredible job. I think it's testament to Arteta that he's got 3 players in there. But is this a debate? Are we having this conversation?
It's Erling Haaland. But I agree with what you said. The fact that, Arsenal have got 3 players in there. How many did we have in the previous season?
Correct.
You know what I mean? So, normally you're doing things like team of the season and that. There's not even an Arsenal player mentioned anywhere near it. You know what I mean? This season, we've got so many players, that we can put into a team of the season. Those 3 young players have been exceptional. Had Haaland not been around, I think Saka and Odegaard in particular, those 2, and Martinelli, all 3 of them have been brilliant. All 3 of them have been brilliant. It's hard to pick between the 3 of them. All 3 of them have been exceptional, but Erling Haaland, for what he's done this season, you can't look past him, can you? He's been incredible. He's been
a real,
unbelievable.
Real beast is what I call
What I would say on that though is when Erling Haaland came to the Premier League, he was a prolific goal scorer. He was at world level when he came here. That's why Manchester City got him.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at Martinelli, Saka and Odegaard, Arteta has tangibly improved them this year. And if this was a question of, the how much people have improved, you could actually make a case for some of these Arsenal players. Martin Odegaard this year, I mean, the amount of goals he's scored in big moments, and you could say the same about Saka, you could say the same about Martinelli, and assists, and not
15 Odegaard, 15
incredible
goals from open play.
It's incredible.
and,
no
and,
penalties.
and of course, you got to add on to that the leadership skills he's shown
with the
throughout.
armband, right? With the armband. So
That's a legitimate shout.
That's the thing. So if you're looking at improvement, you can make a case for them. But ultimately, man, Erling Haaland is just the guy got a guard of honour from his own team in his first season.
It's difficult to look past him.
Young player of the year, player of the year, give it to him all.
So I think we're fairly unanimous. I think most people are going to go
What's the chat saying
either.
on that one?
Pretty much Haaland. Yeah.
But honourable mention for our players, man.
Is there anyone, again, very quickly, that's not on the list that you think is worthy of inclusion?
Sorry?
Anyone not on the list that you think is worthy of inclusion that you can think of? Or do you think that list pretty much covers it?
Yeah, I think that list. Joe Willett not on that list. He's had a good season as a young player.
Has.
But I think that list pretty much covers it.
We did a poll for the manager of the season, and Pep has come out on top, 55%. Mikel Arteta did finish second with 28%. Eddie Howe on 9%, and Roberto De Zerbi on 7%.
Okay.
So that's interesting.
Sorry. Apologies, I had to go and get disciplined for my Frank Lampard shout. That was the problem.
Okay. Yes, I was just reading out the results of the poll, and Pep Guardiola topped the poll.
Was it convincing?
55%.
That's close. That's close.
Arteta was 28%, and Eddie Howe, the guys who you both chose as your sort of non-elect,
Yeah.
he's third, and Roberto De Zerbi fourth. Okay.
By the way, a bit of breaking news. Aaron Ramsdale has signed a new contract.
Nice.
He has?
Arsenal. So they've tied him down for the future, which I think is great news. That's another player. How old is Aaron Ramsdale? Because he could have been in with a shout as a young player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
check.
Because he's been superb this season.
I will check.
Is there a goalkeeper of the season award?
I think they just go with the. Well, Ramsdale's
Well,
25.
He's 25.
Ramsdale's
But is there a goalkeeper of the season award?
I know that there's what they call the
Golden
Glove.
which is going to De Gea apparently. By the way, I mean the amount of clangers that guy's had. He's
Yeah,
about
but
to get the
that
Golden Glove.
award's just for clean sheets. But I think if there's a goalkeeper of the year award, the Ramsdale,
I think that's a good
He'd be
shout.
up there. He'd be up there as a nominee. He'd definitely be up there as a nominee.
because he's had an outstanding season.
Incredible season, and again, it
Ramsdale,
goes back
Pope.
to improvement, doesn't it? Tangible improvement.
Yeah. And De Gea, I mean, like you said, he'll get a Golden Glove.
Yeah.
For the most clean sheets, but no way has he been anywhere near being one of the best goalkeepers. David Raya at Brentford's been good.
Can't look past Edison. Can't look past Edison.
Does
Edison.
Nick Pope qualify for it?
Nick Pope, yeah. Even though he's dropped a few.
Yeah.
I just don't think his distribution's as good as Ramsdale, but he's a great keeper.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if there was a keeper award, I'd have Ramsdale right up there.
Definitely.
There's a couple of super chats here. Well, there's no name given there. It says going from 49 points to 69 is easier than 69 to 87.
Okay.
Okay.
True.
I'd agree.
True.
Another super chat here that I've got from Dave Jordan. He says, Laurie's such a contrarian. Lampard is his manager of the year. I don't think so. I mean, for the record, I didn't give my opinion at the time. I let you guys duke it out, but I would have gone for Pep, to be honest.
Yeah. Similar sort of reasons?
Yeah, very similar sorts of reasons. I think what he's done, not just this season, but since he's been here, the way he's changed the nature of the game. He's built a phenomenal team, and you made a very valid
He's done that
point
over
about,
years, though, hasn't he?
Okay, but you know, the longevity's there, what he's achieved. You made a very good point, the way he's managed the resources. I mean, lots of managers get vast resources and for whatever reason they're not able to manage them. You know, I mean, we've seen that with countless managers over the years, not least Lampard. We've seen he's walked into a dressing room with, you know what I mean, bags of talent and ego, and he's not been able to do anything with it. So it does take a special type of skill.
Yeah, that and also the ability to go through a transitional phase or somewhat of a rebuild whilst still winning the biggest trophies in the game is incredible. Because a lot of teams, fans, managers will use that as an excuse for dropping off slightly whilst we try and come back. Right? I've heard it from Liverpool fans this year, for example. Pep doesn't need to do that. He constantly evolves. He gets rid of players at the right time, brings in players at the right time, and keeps battering everyone. It's scary times.
It is. And I would just say as well, although we're trying to confine it to the Premier League, you do really have to take into consideration the other competitions. And I'll tell you why, because when you're trying to balance all those priorities out and still maintain and still, let's face it, to all intents and purposes, go on and win the Premier League, that does count for a lot.
Yeah.
But it's a Premier League.
It is, but what I'm saying, the other factors...
And as I said, right, you know, as great a manager as he is, he ain't short of the resources. Yes, he had to get rid of, you know,
but it's how you manage those resources.
Raheem Sterling goes out, he brings in Erling Haaland. Who else can do that? So,
but I can think of managers that might have had Erling Haaland at their club and not been able to manage him
Imagine
properly.
if Arteta had Erling Haaland this season.
Yeah, exactly. We can imagine.
Could that have been the thing that would have tipped it over the line in some of those games where teams came back? You got Erling Haaland to get you that extra goal.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
It's an interesting debate.
Imagine if Arteta, as I said, was able to, you know, bring in Laporte when Saliba got out injured, you know.
But that goes back.
Those are the sort of things I'm talking about. Imagine if, you know, Saka comes off, you know, he's able to bring on Mahrez. Yeah, Grealish comes off, he's able to bring on Foden. These things I think need to be taken a bit into account. Yes, he's great. Yes, he motivates them, like you said, which is a great achievement. Yes, he's the GOAT when it comes to managers. But for this season, for what Arteta's done, when nobody thought this team would be anywhere near it, he gets the vote from me.
Again, listen, you make some very salient points there. I wouldn't disagree with anything you just said. I would just give it to Pep because of, you know, what he's done and what he's doing. I just think that overall he shades it for me. And listen, some of the names on there, very good managers. That's beyond dispute. But I just think in the final analysis, what Pep's done, what he's built there and what he's maintained, you can't look past that for me.
The fact that we're even having this conversation, the fact that our manager is up there for manager of the season, the fact that our manager is now we're having a conversation about whether Pep Guardiola or our manager should be winning this award is testament to how far the club has come in the last few years.
Okay, super chat here from Rizwan Khan. He says, City has been tuned by Pep for 8 years to win everything. Mikel has taken a couple of kids, second choice transfer targets, and put together a title run. Arteta has moved Arsenal from 8th to 2nd, which is
true. Fact.
And listen,
Fact.
We all agree on this, when I say panel, all three of us agree that Arteta's done a magnificent job. But, you know, there has to be a winner, and the guys have had their say. Again, Robbie's gone for Arteta. Sheroy's gone for Pep. I must say I've gone for Pep, but that's not to in any way discredit, denigrate, or underappreciate anything Mikel Arteta has done. As indeed some of the other guys in there as well, they've done brilliant. Eddie Howe, as we spoke about, he's done a great job. But thanks, guys. Appreciate your honest and forthright opinions, and thank you guys for tuning in. Keep it locked to the channel, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. We're AFTV. We'll see you soon.
Oh, by the way, just before you go, I nearly forgot to mention, we got the Invincible podcast live, right?
Oh, yeah?
Live is happening at the Islington Assembly Hall on Tuesday, the 23rd of May. They're going to put a link in the description, wanting you guys to join us there. We've already sold a load of tickets. These guys are going to be here on the night as well. So make sure you come down and join us. And we're going to be announcing who the Arsenal player of the season is going to be on that night, right, as voted by you. That is a very tough one. So make sure you get down there on the night. It's going to be great.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. Take care.
Don't forget, the Invincible podcast is coming to you live.
It's going to be taking place at the Islington Assembly Hall on Tuesday, the 23rd of May. Tickets are available right now. Click the link and get involved now.
Come and join us.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.